I'll give you the short version right now of what I've done in podcast length before. And that is my order of what the most important kind of gear is in the studio and the places you should be looking to put your money first. Because a lot of people get this almost completely backwards. The most important gear in your studio is the gear that is closest to the beginning of the signal chain and the end of the signal chain. The stuff in the middle of the signal chain matters less than the stuff on the outside of the signal chain. What's a signal chain? Well, your signal chain goes like this: microphone into electronic processing. This includes mic preamp, EQ, compressor, etc. in the hardware domain. And then we go these days to analog to digital converters, or in the old school, it would have been a tape machine. And then we're coming out the other side, your D to A converter, then all of your electronic devices that are amplifying that signal, and then your speakers. But the signal chain actually goes out even further than that. If we're to look at the signal chain like this, then microphones and speakers are more important than the rest of the stuff in the middle. Not that the rest of the stuff in the middle doesn't matter and doesn't make a difference. We're just talking about where is your lowest hanging fruit, where you can get the most bang for your buck, generally speaking. Which area should you max out first? And the outside of your signal chain, microphones and speakers, bigger impact on how things turn out than the inside of your signal chain. But what's even more important than that, microphones and speakers, is go out another layer from it. The actual room that those microphones and speakers are in. I would absolutely much rather have a $100 or $400 microphone in a good acoustic environment than I would have a $4,000 microphone in a gymnasium on a basketball court. No, thank you. I'll take the cheap mic in the decently treated, good sounding space. Same thing goes on the other end of the chain. Speakers. Would I rather have a $4,000 set of speakers on a basketball court, or would I rather have a $300 set of studio monitors in a reasonably well-controlled acoustic environment? I'd rather have the latter. So going out even further, what matters more than microphones and speakers, provably true, is the acoustic environment that they exist in. But then there's something removed even further out in the signal chain. And that is the user, the operator, the musician and their instrument going into that microphone. So let's take it a step back. More important than the preamp is the microphone. More important than the microphone is the space it's in. Possibly almost on par with the space it's in is the instrument being played into that microphone. Those two things kind of operate together. They're a system. And I can't say one is definitively more important than the other. They both have an impact, but I might even give it the edge to the acoustic environment over the instrument. But then even more important than that is whose damn hands the instrument is in. And then zoom out to the other side of the signal chain. You've got the speaker is way more important than the D to A converters. The headphones are way more important than the headphone amplifier. Not that D to A converters can't make a difference at all. Not that headphone amps can't make a difference at all. They can. But just we're talking about lowest hanging fruit, biggest bang for the buck. Speakers, more important than D to A converters. Headphones, more important than headphone amps. But then we go further out than that. Acoustic environment, provably bigger impact than the speakers. But then even more important than the acoustic environment is the person listening to the stuff and making the choices. And that's what makes all of the stuff in the middle sound good and seem important. Preamps will have subtle differences one to the other, and you can select some depending, like some preamps sound almost identical to each other. Like you could take, at random, you could take a dozen preamps just completely at random. And on average, I'm going to say that 8 of them are going to sound practically identical. And then 3 or 4 of them might sound subtly different from the others in a way that you can really discern each time. And if you had a selection of 6 different preamps, maybe 1 or 2 of them sound repeatably really discernible from the others, but the others are all kind of more or less sound the same. And yeah, maybe there are small differences, but they're not huge. But what makes all the stuff in the middle sound really interesting, the EQs, the compressors, the reverbs, is the damn person at the other end of the chain. So that's a big, big place to work on before you look for yet another plugin, yet another hardware compressor, yet another EQ that's going to fix things for you, is first fix yourself. And that's where sometimes things like courses, mixing breakthroughs, compression breakthroughs, mastering demystified help. And yeah, here I'm selling something, but the reason I sell those things is because I know they help people more than gear. Now, that said, I'll give you a disclaimer on courses is you can end up in a place if you get really obsessed with courses like I have with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I buy a lot of Jiu-Jitsu courses because I like Jiu-Jitsu. Anyone here knows that I'm a Jiu-Jitsu nerd if they listen to me talk long enough. And those have been tremendously helpful. And so one of the reasons I'm confident in selling courses myself is because I see how much informational products have actually helped me in another thing that I love doing. But you do run the problem if you've worked on yourself enough. There's a certain point where it's like, okay, stop consuming too much media. Stop working on yourself so much. It's time to create. It's time to spend more time in the creative act of actually doing this thing and not just studying it. Now, the need to continuously study and improve yourself never goes away. But you do potentially run into an issue where you can become compulsive about educating yourself to the detriment of your own output. But this is advice that I'd only give to someone who's already taken all of my courses, all of someone else's courses, all of someone else's courses. You really get to a very high point of study and looking for new knowledge before you reach diminishing returns there. So that should be something that's in the mix. And this is not to say that you shouldn't nerd out over which compressors and EQs you like the most. And honestly, nerding out over which EQs and compressors you like the most can help do the thing of improving your ability to listen, improving your ability to hear subtle differences, keeping you in the game of waking up obsessed with this stuff, of having another fun thing to do in the studio. So the last thing that I'll say around this that I realized when I started buying a lot of jiu-jitsu courses for myself is the more money I spent on courses teaching me how to do jiu-jitsu better, the more money I made at my job doing audio and music production stuff and teaching people about audio and music production stuff. Because all of a sudden, I had this additional reason to take on projects that I otherwise might not be as excited about completing, or I'd get a little less procrastinating because I'm like, oh, if I make an extra X dollars this month, I can justify buying another jiu-jitsu course. And if that's how you are about either courses or gear or plugins, then that's awesome. And my goal with this episode is just to help you have a healthy relationship with buying gear. It's not my goal to say gear doesn't matter, don't buy gear, gear is stupid, it's overrated. And if you take the cynical mindset, that might be what you think I'm saying, that you don't need any gear, you don't need to spend any money on the development of your equipment. And it's like, you know what? You should spend some. But I just want you to put things in their proper priority. And if you're one of those people who haven't sorted out the things closer to the ends of the chain rather than the middle of the chain, if you haven't sorted those things out first, work your way from the outside in when you're making your improvements in audio gear. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, you don't have to feel obsessed I need this piece of gear and my records aren't going to sound great until I get this sexy piece of gear, this sexy plugin that they're talking about. That's not the case. And that's not why you should be buying the stuff. You should be buying the things where you've underinvested, such as the things on the outside of the chain. And then as you get closer and closer to the inside of the chain, you should be buying things because it's fun for you. That it just makes the process more fun, more inspiring, you're more engaged, you're more excited to do the next project because now you get to buy the nice geeky microphone. And then you have so many fewer experiences where you're like, I was ripped off. That thing sucked. People told me it'd be good and it wasn't. This was my hard-earned $1,200 is the only $1,200 I have ever had or ever will have. Get into that kind of thinking, right? But if you approach it in a totally different way, oh, this is the fun stuff. I get to try something new. And if it doesn't work out, well, part of the fun was I tried it and I compared it to the other things. And you know what? I bought this new mic that's more expensive or supposedly better than my other one. And it turns out I like the one that I have more already. And you know what? Even buying a new mic that I didn't like gave me confidence in the stuff that I had already. So there are so many possibly positive side effects to buying gear, even gear that doesn't make a huge difference. So I don't want to tell you not to buy gear. I just want it to be fun for you. If you like that short clip, you might love the full-length video it came from, or you might love one of my full-length courses like Mixing Breakthroughs, Compression Breakthroughs, or Mastering Demystified. We've also got GPU Audio sponsoring this month. Check them out over at gpu.audio/sonic-scoop, where you can get a whole suite of plugins totally for free. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you next time.